down in Brownsville? Were you just
Uh, Yvonne's grandma's on her way out, and
oh,
she wanted to get a chance to say goodbye.
well,
And I wanted to show Julia a couple of places in my hometown, show her what I used to do, where I used to go. We ended up at the Playhouse. We saw Mary Poppins because one of my friends was acting in it, and that was really cool. I mean, it's amateurish. He did real good. There's a lot of amateur hour involved with other people, and I noticed that the one thing I don't miss about back home is how there's a lack of decorum to everything down there. So like there was a lot of talking, kids running around, like, and I'm like, there's people working on stage here, like y'all
oh,
have no respect. But yeah, dude, it was loud, and crap like that wouldn't fly ever around here. And I had forgotten about that because they folks down there tend to be that way.
Where's that guy that was scolding Andy's kids?
He should have sat near
This
me.
would have been appropriate.
who
But
was
yeah,
who was your friend playing in Mary Poppins?
he played Admiral Broom.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fun. I love Mary Poppins. Like I think like if I had to put together my like top 10 list of favorite films of all time, pretty sure Mary Poppins would end up in the top 5.
yeah.
So, I mean, I just love it and like it makes me cry. Like Feed the Birds and that the one song called A Man Has Dreams where it's Mr. Banks and Bert the Chimney Sweep talking, and I don't know. There's just something about that song. I'm like, it's it's a very adult song. It's like when I was a kid, I didn't get it, and I wanted to like just let's do It's a Jolly Holiday and Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and whatever. And then as I grew up, I'm like, holy crap, this is a deep, deep, deep movie. So I love it. I love Mary Poppins.
Oh, I love Mary Poppins. It's one of my favorite musicals. I know there's a lot of guys that cringe when you say musical, but I love musicals, man.
I love musicals.
I love the talent it takes to put those things together and to coordinate and to sing and dance. And Dick Van Dyke is awesome. I don't
Yep.
care what anybody says in his crazy, stupid Hackney accent, Cockney accent. It is Hackney. Uh, but I remember loving it as a kid, man, and I remember speaking like him as a kid because I loved his character, and I actually wanted a job cleaning chimneys because I thought that was
Oh
glorious. Because
no.
apparently you could see to the stars and touch them. And then I grew up and I figured out, no, you get cancer working those jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, that's how you get
Poor Bert. Poor Bert died of emphysema or something.
Black. Speaking of bad Cockney accents, right before we started, we've been rewatching Community, and Troy and Abed watch a Doctor Who ripoff show called Inspector
Yeah.
Spacetime, and so
Oh, man.
there's an episode where Troy is off doing something else, and he's on a date with Britta, and so Annie plays the fill-in constable, and she's like got this horrible Cockney accent. She's like, "Hello, governor." It's like so terrible. I'm just like, I love this show so much.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite episodes. And I actually want to see a show based on Troy and Abed's Inspector Spacetime.
Oh
That
my
would be so awesome.
You bring I well, I mean we kind of have we'll talk about this later when we get to our top 10 list, but Dan Harmon went on and did Rick and Morty, and
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of Inspector Spacetimey. It's like Inspector Spacetime on like heavy liquor and quaaludes.
Right. For me, it's more like if Doc and Marty actually just hung out for a while instead of just taking care of Marty's family. Like if they were to use the DeLorean to go back in time and do stuff, I don't know why I figure Rick and Morty would be like that.
I don't
Almost.
know. Rick is like a sociopath. No, Rick is a sociopath.
He is, yeah.
That's just the best part of that show. It's terrible. And how just crazy out there that show is. But let's talk about Doctor Who because we got a new episode. We got a Christmas episode, and yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. So, yeah, River Song definitely a space Mormon. Um, uh, how many husbands did we find out here? There was the king. There was
Being the Hispanic dude, whatever his name was,
yeah,
Rodrigo or whatever the hell.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then the doctor.
The
I
doctor, yeah.
love I love that the doctor's code name was Damsel.
Right.
That's adorable.
I love the back and forth they had when he's like, "You married him," and she's like, "Cleopatra," and Queen Elizabeth, and he's like trying to provide excuses. That
Yeah,
was kind of funny.
yeah. So that was good. That was a lot of fun. Um, I don't know what were your guys' overall thoughts?
Uh, it was better than last year, but the
Yeah.
bar is very low, very very low. So it's definitely better than last year. What I did appreciate about it overall is how Moffat pretty much closed River Song's storyline in a nice little bow. So we don't. I mean, Alex Kingston is great, and the character is great, but I guess we don't have to see her anymore. Because if we continue doing that, nothing's going to make sense. So this was a good way to put an end to that character. I thought that was good. The whole Baymax villain thingy,
Yeah,
yeah, no. And
like
the whole diamond thing. I mean, there was way too much contrivance in this one. Way too much. But it was better than last year's, at least. We weren't talking about oranges.
well, if they were, I don't know, like it's just so obviously a Baymax ripoff. Like
Yes.
if it had been even the slightest bit different, but like his wings even pop out and they go off flying, just like okay, there's an homage, and then there's just being lazy.
Right.
And I felt like it was more the latter. I mean, I thought I was being clever when I'm like, oh, they're going to be battling Baymax, and nope.
No, yeah, pretty much was that. Exactly. It was all about Baymax. River Song and the Doctor, or she not knowing who the Doctor was. That was a real playful. I did enjoy that. How he was in on the joke and she wasn't, and how he just waits until the right moment to say, "Okay, yo, this is me." So all that was kind of cool. But I mean, if I had to judge it overall with all the Christmas specials, I don't even know where to begin because they're so bad most of the time. But it's definitely not in the lower half, I would say. I guess that's high praise when it comes to Christmas specials.
This was
I put
probably
it
my
in the
second.
middle. I think
Yeah,
it's somewhere, it's just in the middle. Probably if you were going to rank them or something. I don't know. But the problem I had, I do agree, Marco, first of all, that this is a good way to kind of wrap up her storyline because it did need, that was like a dangling thread out there that needed to be tied. It really just,
right.
it's been a while, and you did want to see her with Peter Capaldi and how she might play off of him. But the problem I had, um, I realized that she thinks that the doctors used up all her regenerations, and that's why she didn't recognize him. But I'm sorry, from jump, she should have recognized him. I mean, the minute he said which alphabet, she should have. I mean, even in the actor, you could see a little spark of trying not to pretending like she didn't recognize him. You know what I'm saying? Because that is a classic like Doctor River Song exchange that should have clued her in that this was the Doctor. But instead, she just pretended like she didn't know and just went on. And so what happened is basically they spent more than half the episode with her not knowing who the Doctor is. And again, I get that she thought he used up all his regenerations, but if anyone from New Who should understand that things are fluid, it's a human woman born of a human with a human father who has Time Lord DNA simply because of where she was conceived. It's a woman who had to break her wrist once to escape a stone statue because she looked away from it. Do you understand? Like, this woman has seen too much to not think that there was a possibility that that could have been the doctor. I'm sorry. She's too smart for that. And they, it just bothered me that their smartest character, basically they treated her like a moron for half the episode.
Yeah, well, it was definitely contrived that they decided to keep her in the dark the whole time because they wanted that big long reveal where he finally at the end gets to say, "Hello, sweetie." And I get that they wanted that payoff, but I agree. They just should have.
Didn't work because by then we're just like, Jesus, has she figured it out already? Has the smartest character on this show figured it out already?
Yeah, and I
Uh,
think we were all kind of exasperated by that. I liked some of it, like when they went to the TARDIS and the Doctor like is like, "Oh my gosh, it's so much bigger on the inside." He's like, "I always just wanted to see that done once." Like okay, that was funny, but then after that, I felt like there weren't any really good bits that were better served them not by River not knowing who the Doctor was.
for me, there was only one when she was talking about how she would steal the TARDIS and then bring it back 5 seconds later, and she'd go off on all those adventures without him, but she'd bring it back to only 5 seconds after she left, so he never knew that it was gone.
Hmm.
And so he's just like, "You what?" And maybe he knew, and that was pretty funny that she, but then when she went on and on about how he doesn't love her and blah blah blah, that was just, I was like, "Oh,
That
please
was
just hurry up and reveal, do whatever little bit you have,
I,
please just stop."
what I liked was the hidden brandy. That was kind of cool. How she's got booze in the ship and he's never known it.
I like that.
That was funny. But I can't defend the writing or the plot or anything, but I get it. It does make sense that she knows that his regeneration stop at 12, and she already knows the face of 12, or she already knows the 11th Doctor's face, and he shouldn't have any more regenerations after that because that was the 12th regeneration. So I get that. But like you guys said, they dragged it on a bit too long. Now, I think maybe she knew but didn't want to confront it, and she wants to tell him how unimportant she feels at times, and this is her way of saying it without saying it, sort of in a way. I know it's stretching it. I know it is, but I kind of have to do that because they just didn't do a good job of doing that. But I think that's what they were going for. Whether it worked or paid off or not is a whole other issue. But I think that's what they were going for.
I think they needed to have a red team in the writers' room that argued for an earlier reveal and like went through every page of script and said like, how is this better served with River not knowing who the Doctor is and pushing that back as far forward as possible to make it a little bit less plausible. I think they could have done that scene where she's saying like, how stupid would the Doctor have to be to have come here? Like, if she knows who it was and she knows that he's saying that and she's like getting in some digs at him, because I feel like that pain is definitely real on River's part, that she feels unimportant and forgotten a lot of the time. And I think it would have meant more if she would have known that he was listening to her. Like, she can finally unburden herself and she knows that she's being heard. Rather than like her like being just like, oh, I'm going to insult the Doctor because he's not here, because I would never say these things to his face.
Right.
Like I think that scene would have worked better if again they would have pushed that up, that reveal. And like the bit with the brandy in the TARDIS and so on and so forth. Like she could have done that like knowing that the Doctor was there. She's like, "Oh yeah, I did that." And he's just like, "You're amazing." And it's just another reason to love her. So I don't know. Yeah. Again, I think they should have just had a red team that said you need to push this back and made them reevaluate and rewrite that script to do that, and it wouldn't have actually needed that much changing. So
Yeah,
the,
I agree with everything you're saying. Overall, it worked, but it just wasn't as satisfying as it should have been. But I agree with everything you said.
I don't think it worked at all. But what would it help though? You know, at the beginning, on the note on the TARS, it said carolers will be criticized. I really wanted to see him criticize the carolers.
me
I wish they would
too.
have brought some carolers and let him criticize them. You know, also because I don't think carolers really exist. I think they're one of those things that Hollywood makes up. I've never seen carolers. I've never heard of any of my neighbors. I've lived in different cities. Nobody's ever caroled around my neighborhoods. I think this just, it's like the basement in the Alamo. They just made it up.
Well, I've been a Christmas caroler,
Oh,
um, and
snap.
we had carolers on Christmas night. So, but they were people we knew from church, so it's not like, and that's generally been the context in which I've ever participated in it. So it's not like, oh, we're just doing this for strangers. We're going to people that we know, and so it's like,
That's selfish. No, I'm kidding. um,
obviously, well, Melissa, if I lived in San Antonio, we would come and carol to you, but um,
I
I'm
think
not.
everybody knows that Melissa has an empty heart, and they just avoid her neighborhood.
You're a mean one,
Mr.
Mr.
Grinch.
Well, we'll just Mark and I will just carol you right now via the magic of the internet. Anyway, so but I speaking of singing, I want to go to that final climax with the restaurant at the Singing Towers, and um it was a little overwrought, a little bit uh, like manipulative, but I was happy with it, and I'm like, well, at least they got this. It's like, yeah, okay. They're going to spend, how long did they say that evening last?
24 days.
24 days. So it's like they're going to get to spend a while together.
In
That's
the words of Tracy Morgan, someone gonna get pregnant tonight. All
yeah.
right, can that happen? Yeah, no, it can, right? She's part-time, Lord. It can
Sure.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I don't know, maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, but it was a good way to wrap it up and to give her the send off that she needs. I mean, yeah, I know the send off is technically silence in the library, but um, we needed something prior to that, and
Right.
it was nice to see River like that math working out in her head. Like, my book is almost full. I know what that means. And how protective she was of that diary. It like really imparted a lot of weight to that. And I think that was very smart. And it was also fun for them to revisit a couple of old jokes, like, oh, Joe the fish, and
Right.
things like that, like things that have been talked about and tossed off, but never, um, and now we'll never know, which is great. It's good to have a little mystery.
Yeah, to keep it that way. And a lot of parts did work, and so that's why I say overall it worked. It just didn't stick the landing. But overall, I mean, it was a decent send off with character.
For a Christmas episode, I'm really happy. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. It very much could have been a lot worse. So yeah, I mean, but once again, like I said, very low for this.
yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, that's it for River Song. That's it for this season of Doctor Who, which is sad. But
Goodbye, River.
we're this is also our this will be our last episode for the year. I mean, we will technically record another one Well, this will come out like right before, well, New Year's Eve Eve. So this is the last one for 2015. Um, and so we're going to close the year out strong with running down our top things of the year, and we all kind of threw in different things, and we're going to run them through. So, does anyone want to go first? Does anyone want to go last?
Uh,
Don't matter to me.
Melissa took notes, so let's hear hers.
I took notes.
You said you wrote down like a huge list.
So did I.
I heard it down to 10, so.
Y'all are
Um,
nerds. No, I did too.
Yep.
all right, I'll go first then. All right, so I have a top 10 list, and I do want to quickly, though, mention two things that if you had asked me at the beginning of the year what would be on my top 10 list, some of the stuff that is on my top 10 list is I would have said that, like Star Wars, dub, but there were two things in particular that kind of shocked me that not only did they not make the top 10, they were like probably not even the top like 50 things I liked this year. One of them is Avengers Age of Ultron. We talked at length about this movie in this podcast. I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I was disappointed in how much I didn't love it. I've seen it again like twice since then, and I just feel kind of about it. It's not bad, but it's not great. It's just sort of in the middle. Yeah, it's kind of just there. I don't know. I really thought this would be in my top 10 for sure, and it didn't make anywhere near that cut. So
Yep.
I was surprised by that. And the other one is Supergirl. I want to like this show so much, but I stopped watching. I stopped watching about a month ago, and I don't miss it. They put out a really terrible trailer, which we talked about at length on this podcast, or argued about, I guess is probably closer to the word. And the pilot ended up being much better than the trailer belied, but because I thought it had potential. It wasn't a great pilot, but it was good, and it had potential. But they haven't done anything with that potential, so I'm really disappointed because there's so many studio executives who are like, oh, women can't front a superhero show because Catwoman or because Elektra that happened over 10 years ago. And if this doesn't pick up and become better, I'm afraid it's going to kind of solidify that really sexist train of thought. And so I really want it to succeed. I want it to be better, and I want to like this show, but I just don't. I don't hate it, but I just, I mean, do you guys like Supergirl? Have you been watching it at all?
I haven't watched it, not because I don't want to, but I always have stuff to do. But I catch my daughter watching it all the time, and she loves it.
Yeah.
I want to watch it. I watched the pilot and really enjoyed it. The problem is because CBS doesn't put their shows on Hulu, like
That's another, yeah.
until it gets to Netflix, I'm just like, yeah, I'm probably not gonna watch it. Like, I got other shows going on, and like, I'm sorry, this is really terrible, but like, Gotham is on Hulu, and I'm gonna watch Gotham, even though like I know it's not really that great of a show. Like, it has been good, but like CBS, you got to make it easier for me. I'm sorry.
I don't really watch anything on Hulu except Mindy projects, so I really
That's
yeah,
it's
I
where I
had no
watch like
idea.
all my TV. So
Oh,
because we
okay.
don't have cable, so
I get you. Okay.
yeah,
All
yep.
right. So on to the actual list, though. Number 10 is Transparent, which is on Amazon Prime. Have
Oh
y'all
yeah.
ever seen this show?
See, I don't
No,
have Amazon Prime.
but I've been meaning to.
Well, I don't have Amazon Prime either, but I have a friend who does, and so that's how that's how I watch it. The season 1 came out in January, and then everybody thought that they were going to release season 2 in January, but they actually released it right before Christmas. So this show, it kind of was like a bookend to the year, bookends to the year. What was, for me at least, a wildly uneven year in entertainment. I think there were some really great highs, but also some pretty bad lows too. But Transparent was one of the highs. It's about a woman who, well, a man who much later on in life finally admits that, you know, he feels like a woman. That's how he identifies. But, you know, he's older and set in his ways, and he's got kind of a crazy family, and so there's a lot of issues. And what I love about the show is that it's just very straightforward. It doesn't try to skirt around anything. It talks about prejudice even within the transgender community. It talks about sexism and feminism and some of the issues with those things, and it's just very honest. Yeah, I really think that this show deserves all the accolades it gets. Do y'all ever watch it?
No,
Right?
I've really been meaning to. It's on my list, and I love Jeffrey Tambor.
Yeah.
I think he's a great actor, and for him to take this on, especially in a year where, okay, a political soapbox for 2 seconds, but like, Caitlyn Jenner, like, I just don't care, because
Yeah.
I think like the whole Jenner Kardashian clan are like horrible people. Like, good for Caitlyn, I guess, but I think I think Caitlyn Jenner is not a good person, and so I'm sad that like that is who we have as like the poster person for transitioning transgender. And like I'd much rather have I'd much rather have something that was like, I have friends who transitioned this year, and I'm much more supportive of them. I'm like, good for you.
Or
You
you
are
know
my
what?
hero.
You know what? There's Laverne Cox. She's been great in Orange Is the New Black.
Yep.
She's a great role model. Lest we forget that Bruce or Caitlyn Jenner crashed and killed somebody.
Yep.
Like, this person should not be held to any kind of pedestal. And this person pretty much sold their transition to TV. We have
Not to mention the politics.
right,
Her
right. But we have somebody like Laverne Cox who's great, and she's been an outspoken supporter of trans people. So why aren't we shifting our attention to somebody a lot more positive? Why does it have to be a Kardashian of all people? Well, he's not a Kardashian, but the Kardashian clan, the whole thing. Why are we doing this? It's disgusting, and it's not an attack on trans folk, because I don't care. Be who you want, whoever you're comfortable with. That's fine with me. And I actually like Laverne Cox. I really do. She's fantastic. Why can't we go with her? Or at least RuPaul, because he can make it work.
Because she's black. That's why.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Let's be honest about it. And see, and this is how I know you guys would like Transparent, because they're honest. I mean, like, there was the best episode this season. I won't spoil it, but it takes place at this annual like get together where women go. No men are allowed, and women are there just to be around each other and not have to worry about like the daily aggressions they feel from men and stuff. And they go around and they're just like topless and free and whatever. And so the main character, Jeffrey Tambor, he goes because he's a woman, but he wasn't born a woman, so he faces like a ton of discrimination because of it, and ultimately has to leave. Yeah. And it's, you know, they don't try and sugarcoat it like, hey, this happens. Even within the because most of those women are lesbians, so even within the LGBTQ community, there is all kinds of fighting and just really, you know, unsupportive of each other a lot. Yeah. And they don't try and sugarcoat it. It's just very upfront and honest and almost cringeworthy, because you're embarrassed that this is still happening, you know. Yeah. But that's part of what makes it so entertaining. And also Judith Light, I think we all, since we're all around the same age, we probably remember her as the constantly exasperated mother in Who's the Boss, which was a terrible show that I somehow looked
Hey,
forward to
hey,
watching
hey.
every week. Like I so look forward to watching it every week, even though it was awful. But
It was awesome.
but she's fantastic. I mean, because Jeffrey Tambor is the one getting all the awards and stuff, and well deserved, by the way. But it, you know, she gets overshadowed by him, but she's just fantastic in this. Really, really great. All right, so moving on, because I'm trying not to take up too much time because I know y'all have to go.
I'm happy to talk about, because that was not something on my list, and I'm glad
Yeah.
to talk about it.
Number 9 is Crazy Ex-Girlfriend on the CW. Have y'all
Oh.
watched this show?
No.
Yeah, I watched the pilot and I didn't pick it up after that, but I'm like, this is a cute show. I just never had time for it after that.
Yeah, well, you know, I made time for it because, because I thought I was putting Arrow on the shelf and I wasn't going to watch it this season, and I've ended up watching it just because they're introducing the characters from Legends of Tomorrow, which I do want to watch next year.
Yeah.
So I feel like I want to know that, you know, I want to see how they were introduced into this world. So I've been watching it, unfortunately. But this show, at first when I heard the title, I was like, what kind of sexist BS is this, you know? But it turns out the title just belies what the show is really about. I mean, it tackles all kinds of things. It's like part drama, part really dark comedy, part musical, and part social commentary. It's like all these things rolled up into a real 1 hour of goodness every week. And yeah, I'm loving it. There's nothing else quite like it on TV, and it's definitely my new favorite show of the year. Um, Number 8 is Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. Um,
Oh,
this
yeah.
was its second season, and the first season was like really fantastic and really kind of refreshing, and I would have been happy if he had just kind of coasted on that, you know, in the second season. And by and large, he kind of did in a way, like he used the same formula because it worked. But he went a step further, like he like to show what BS it is that some of these churches get tax exempt status when they're clearly for profit. He actually started his own church just to like, you know, just to prove a point at how easy it was to get tax exempt and not pay taxes, but to have huge income. And so going that extra mile and really bringing light to a lot of things that I think most Americans don't think about, especially stuff that happens in other countries, because we're so centered on ourselves, I think, and all our domestic problems, that a lot of Americans don't really know what's going on overseas. And he spends long segments talking about certain things that even I wasn't aware of, and I think I'm, you know, pretty up on a lot of stuff that's happening around the world. But I really enjoyed this season.
Yeah,
What do y'all think?
I like to, if the Daily Show is the nightly news and the Colbert Report was the O'Reilly factor of fake news, then Last Week Tonight with John Oliver is 60 Minutes. He goes in depth, hard on one subject, and really, really puts it to it. Sometimes week after week, revisiting things. I mean, I think one of the reasons we won net neutrality at the FCC was he held the FCC's feet to the fire and the FCC commissioner, and he made it an issue because now suddenly a major news source seen by millions of people was actually talking about it and calling people out for their BS. And I love that show. I think he
Yeah.
does a great job. I wish that I still had HBO so that I could continue to watch it.
Okay. Number 7 is The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh,
Yay!
yes. Yes.
I love this show. Ever since January of 2014, there has been a Tina Fey-sized hole in my heart because that's when 30 Rock went off the air. And having Kimmy Schmidt on the air, I mean, her fingerprints are all over this show. She's one of the writers and producers, and she was in a few episodes as well. it brings back that delicate balance of snarkiness, self-awareness, and yet obliviousness that was kind of the trademark of 30 Rock, I think. And it made me just love Ellie Kemper. I used to watch The Office, and she was on the last few seasons, but the last few seasons were terrible. And the cast was so big and unwieldy by then that she really didn't get a lot of screen time. So I really had no idea she's such a great actor, but she is. And of course, Titus Andromedus. I mean, we've mentioned him more than
No
once.
noir.
I think it's pretty unanimous that we love this guy. This character is awesome. The actor got nominated for a few awards. I saw. I think like Golden Globe or something. I don't remember. Maybe a SAG award or something. But yeah, well deserved. Really great show, and I can't wait for season 2.
I just loved how geeky that show ended up being. Like the robot in the one episode, the Spider-Man musical, Too Many Spider-Mans, and that whole episode that was all basically Ghostbusters with all the Ghostbusters references. And the final trial where they brought in John Hamm and then they actually showed up as Marsha Clark and like that
Terrible.
those OJ jokes. That was so good, and it was like for people our age where like the OJ trial was a major thing. That like I don't know, that just hit me. It's like this is the most obscure thing ever to be pulling out, and it is so funny. I just loved it.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, a lot of the stuff outside of the top 3, you could kind of switch the place. I just sort of assigned arbitrary numbers, but Kimmy Schmidt probably should have been maybe a little higher than 7, but you could switch it out with a few of the others on the list.
Kimmy Schmidt was 22 on my list. I'm sorry it wasn't higher, but this
No,
is
for me it was higher, but yeah, I didn't go all the way to the 20s. I could have easily, but I was like, then I'll have even a harder time like paring this list down,
Yep.
to a 10. Number 6 is Inside Out.
Hey.
I love this show, This is a movie. It's the first movie on this list. Because it just first of all, Amy Poehler. I mean, gotta love her, and she did a great job. But they just cast all the emotions, the voices for them just perfectly, and it was a touching movie, and it said something about emotions and how and in humans and how we're supposed to experience all these emotions. If there's one thing I hate in society, it's like this notion that you're supposed to be smiley and happy like all the time. Sometimes you're deep in thought or you're thinking about something and it's not appropriate to smile. Like, I hate it when strangers come up to me, why aren't you smiling? And I'm like, why don't you mind your own business? Like maybe there's no reason for me to smile right now.
Because I'm busy wishing your death right now.
It's just, but I mean, and see, but this is the thing. You boys probably never get that because people don't do that to men. They do that to women, though. Like, we're supposed to smile all the time, and if we're not, we're like, just sour or something's wrong with us because women are just supposed to be, smiling all the time or something. And this movie, it sort of shows that, we experience the range of emotions and that's okay. You don't have to be happy all the time. And sometimes you're going to be angry, and again, that's okay. And it did it in a way that wasn't preachy, that everybody could understand. And it just really had like kind of a beautiful message about growing up too, and all, just so many things. It's just really beautiful. Yeah, I really love this movie. I don't know.
It too. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fantastic. Number 5 is Daredevil, and man, this show, I've actually watched it twice. I watched it first when it first came out, and then I watched it again a few months ago. and I still love it. And there were still little things I picked up on that I hadn't picked up on the first time. And I'm sure I'll watch it again sometime in the new year. I really, really enjoyed it. Um, it was really well cast, well acted, and I'm excited to see where they go in season 2. Now that they're gonna have the Punisher, just lots of good stuff there. And I never heard of Charlie Cox before in my life, and he turns out to be an amazing actor. Who knew? So yeah, that one is number 5, and then number 4 is um, in the same vein at Marvel Netflix. It's Jessica Jones. Have y'all finished watching this?
Oh yeah,
Yep. Yep.
fantastic.
Um, yeah, I mentioned Supergirl earlier, how I wished I could have put it in my top 10. How I wished it was good enough to be there, and how kind of disappointed I am that it hasn't really fulfilled its potential. But Jessica Jones fulfilled everything I wanted in it and even more. It's really fantastic. I'm hoping that if Supergirl doesn't work out, that this is still proof that women can front superhero franchises and that they can be good in them. I don't know if it's going to have that effect or not, but either way, it's highly entertaining and so intense. Like, there were a few episodes that I really felt like I needed to take a breather. Like I didn't want to watch the next one right after. I needed a little breather because it was so intense. So really, really well done. Number 3 is Mad Max Fury Road. I I got to see a sneak preview of this, and so you guys asked me to talk about it here on the podcast. It was one of the first episodes I ever did with you guys.
Yeah.
And I gushed and gushed about it, and then later on I was like, oh crap, they're going to go see this movie this week. And I gushed about it, and they're going to be expecting like the moon, and they're going to get like, less than the moon or something. Like, I was afraid I oversold it to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next Sunday we recorded the podcast, and you guys gushed maybe more than me. I mean, this was just fantastic. And really, it could be called Furiosa Road. I mean, it was like, it really was her movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlize Theron was just fantastic in it. The stunts, I mean, and knowing that they used very little CGI and it was all practical stunts just made it even more amazing. And it was the first time in a really long time that I felt like that kind of sense of wonder when watching a movie. I hadn't felt that in a really long time. And this, to me, it was almost like when Elliot's bike started flying with E.T. in the basket, like that magical moment when you're like, whoa. I sort of felt like that in this movie. So definitely, definitely top 3. In fact, I almost made this number 2, but I decided 3, because my number 2 is the final TV show on my list, and it's called Rectify, which I've mentioned to you guys in passing before. Yeah. You still haven't seen it, losers. Whatever.
Nope. Yeah.
Writing it down now.
It's on the Sundance Channel, and it's good when I rank it above Mad Max. Okay. It finished its 3rd season this last summer, and it did get renewed for a 4th season. And again, there's only the whole 3 seasons is a total of 22 episodes. So get on it, boys. That's like 1 season of regular network television. Okay. It's not that long. But it's a slow burn. I mean, this makes like Mad Men look like Mad Max in a way. It's a very slow burn. But it's just it really delves deep into the psyche of this man who's been on death row for a murder that he may or may not have committed for almost 20 years. I mean, he went in when he was a teenager. He was a senior in high school. He went in for murdering his then-girlfriend, and then he gets released because DNA evidence exonerated him. Only they sort of put it in there that maybe he possibly could have done it, but then maybe he didn't. And, there's all of that, but you want him to not be guilty, because he's so touched by what he went through in jail, and there's a certain tenderness and yet anger to him. It's really beautiful, but this is the type of show that shows you this range of emotions that people go through, that damaged people go through, I should say. And it's one of those shows that really makes you think. Like, you will spend a lot of time pondering after every episode. It's incredible. So please, those of you listening, all of our millions of adoring fans, please watch this show on Sundance Channel. And at number one, I'm sure y'all can guess. Do I even need to say it?
Was it James Bond?
I never saw James Bond.
I'm messing with you. I know what it is.
Did you really think I watched James Bond?
No, I know. I'm messing with you. I know you.
It is, of course, Star Wars. I don't think I need to explain why this is number one. I think even if we had done this year-end list, say last week or 2 weeks ago, before Star Wars was even released, I would have put it number one. Because I think that more than any movie, more than anything else, it just made me happy, and it you know, I just can't really describe it any other way. It just made me happy. You could not have slapped that smile off my face after I left the theater. Seriously, you would have had to run over my puppy, if I had a puppy, to get me that smile off my face. Seriously, it really was that good.
Yeah, it totally is. And spoiler alert, it's number one on my list too. I don't think that's surprising.
No.
Although there was a big drag down knockout fight between it and Mad Max. So
yeah, there wasn't much of a fight for me. It was number one.
I'll go with mine next. So Mark, have the last word. A quick honorable mention, since we talked about it before, to Rick and Morty, which came in for me at number 11. But number 10, maybe a bit of a surprise, Shaun the Sheep.
Oh, I loved it.
I loved this movie, and talking about Star Wars making you happy, like, Shaun the Sheep just made me smile and made me happy to be alive. It's so simple and so well done. I absolutely loved it. Number 9, Inside Out. We already talked about it. One other thing that I'll add is Bing Bong, and that Bing Bong makes me cry.
So but do you cry candy?
I wish. If I cried candy, then I'd be much more. And hey, why isn't Richard Kind being nominated for?
He should be.
For that role. He did such a great job.
Yeah, and I think I said that in our podcast, that he was amazing. Like, I don't think anybody else could have given it the weight that he did.
Yeah, I mean, all of those actors were great, but somehow, like, he just fit there. I don't know. I think he's just got that voice, and it just works. So, number 8, The Martian with Matt Damon. Again, talking about good feelings, it was like, okay, I have all of these problems. I'm going to methodically figure them out and science the crap out of all of these things so that I can survive. I loved it. I thought it was gripping. I thought it was well acted. And it was a good space drama on top of all of that. So I love The Martian. Number 7, this might be a bit of a surprise, but Doctor Who.
Oh, nice! Wow, Andy.
I stand by this, that I think that this season has been one of the greatest seasons of a science fiction show ever, and I've just been so happy with it. It absolutely made my top 10 list, and the only reason it isn't higher up is because all of the things on top of it are just unstoppable, in my opinion. Like, any other year, any of these things above Doctor Who would have been the best thing of that year. They just all happen to stack one on top of one another. Number 6 is Trumbo. Which is not a movie that we've talked about at all here, but This is the story of Dalton Trumbo, played by brain fart. Breaking Bad. What's that?
Uh, Bryan Cranston.
Bryan Cranston. Um, so Dalton Trumbo, played by Bryan Cranston, who is probably going to get nominated for an Academy Award, and Louis C.K. is probably going to get nominated for an Academy Award, and other people in this probably deserve to get nominated for Academy Awards. The true story of the Hollywood blacklist and what happened and how Dalton Trumbo continued to write under assumed names in Hollywood despite the blacklist, and was able to kind of come out on top in spite of all of that. Um, the the corollary to that is my number 5 movie, which is Bridge of Spies. Um, Spielberg in his best form here. A great script by Joel and Ethan Cohen, very witty, very dramatic, and deftly performed by Tom Hanks. And when you get those three all working together, it's like these people who know one another and know what their capabilities are, and so the Coens wrote for Tom Hanks very well. Um, Tom Hanks knows how to deliver that dialogue, and Spielberg knows how to get Tom Hanks to deliver that great performance, and it's great. The supporting cast is great. The story's great. It's gripping, and even if you know a ton about the Cold War and what happened, I thought this was just a great look into all of that. Um, Number 4 is Ex Machina, which from the time it came out, I was like, whoa, why is this movie coming out in like March, April? It's really early in the year. It's like, what is going on? Why is this coming out now? This is an Oscar movie. Um, and it's got two of our favorite people from Star Wars in it,
Right.
Domhnall Gleeson and uh, Oscar Isaac. And Oscar Isaac invented a robot, and played by Alicia Vikander, and Domhnall Gleeson is supposed to administer a Turing test to her to try and see if a person could figure out that they're talking to a robot. So has he actually created an artificial intelligence? A really morally, ethically dubious and layered movie, and delves a lot into what I think we as a society are going to have to think about a lot in the next 5 to 10 years with how we interact with technology. And just this movie, okay, so uh, I mean, spoiler alert, we already talked about Star Wars being my number 1 and Mad Max being my number 2. So Ex Machina has got my head. Star Wars has got my heart, and Mad Max Fury Road has got my testosterone. Let's say, you know, but it's so smart, and it's available streaming right now. If you've got Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. I think everyone should watch Ex Machina, who wants to sit and think about robots for a while. Number 3 is Daredevil, and we already talked about that and how great it was. So yeah, 2 Mad Max, 1 Star Wars. That's it.
Cool. I kind of broke my list down between movies, shows, and books. 'Cause I thought that was the best way to do it.
Shh.
Because it's too hard to try to rank them all. It was impossible. So I'll start with movies first. And at number 5, I did top 5 for each category. So in number 5, there's actually a tie. And yes, there's a tie. I don't care what you guys say. And it's between two movies that are complete polar opposites. One of them is Spectre, which I really liked. The opening 10 minutes are just incredible, and I loved how it introduced a specific character. I get by now everybody should know, right?
Yeah.
The way they introduced Blofeld was fantastic. The setup for the next movie possibly is all there. Great. It had all the homages to old Bond, and it had the sense of moving forward with new Bond. Really liked it. So the other movie it's tied with is actually Trainwreck. I loved Trainwreck, and I guess to get on a soapbox, I hate the idea of an all-female Ghostbusters. Not because I'm a misogynist, but because I think they're just grabbing female actors, comedians, and putting them in a previous known role, and we're all supposed to think it's going to be hilarious. I get kind of annoyed with that because these women are fantastic. They're extremely skilled. They're funny as hell. And if you give them original material, it'll pay off. Trainwreck paid off. For me, it paid off. Amy Schumer is hilarious. And it showed that she can lead a movie. And you know what? So can others. I mean, Jennifer Lawrence, I guess, has already proven that. But Amy Schumer doesn't fit into the glammy, skinny, pretty, actress that everybody wants in their movies. She's a little different, but she led this movie. She made it happen. It was hilarious. I absolutely loved it. Plus, Bill Hader was fantastic in this too. And LeBron James, the guy can act.
LeBron James.
Oh, he surprised the hell out of me in that movie.
Me too.
Oh my God.
He can act and he's funny. The whole movie was just great. I had a great experience with it.
Trainwreck was actually on my honorable mentions that I forgot to mention.
So that was tied for my 5th. So 4th would be The Martian, because I just absolutely loved it. I read the book. It's going to be on my top 5 as well. And it stayed true to the book. And everything about this movie was palpable. You could sense how desperate he was becoming. You wanted him to find a way out of Mars up until the last minutes where he's blasting into outer space, pretty much protected with nothing, just canvas. I mean, you're just thinking this is. I had already read the book, but even having read the book, I was thinking he's gonna die, and I knew better. So Ridley Scott, Matt Damon, entire crew, great job. So the top 3, it's not going to be hard to guess. At 3 is Ex Machina for the exact same reasons that Andy spoke about. For me, it was there's the ethics involved. To me, was what really got me. When you create this technology, how far can you take it? And once it reaches self-awareness, what responsibilities do we have to it? And does it have a soul? And what are the rules to all that? And this movie really discovers that. And also, she's kind of evil. And there's the question: was she born that way? Was she made that way? Is that everybody's natural state? There's a lot of great questions that come up with this movie, and I fell absolutely in love with it. The second place would be Mad Max, because it came back, and oh God, did it come back! And Charlize Theron is just fantastic in this movie as Furiosa, and it's pretty much her movie. Even though I like Tom Hardy as Mad Max, and I love that it returned, this was the Charlize Theron show, and I was happy with that. And at number 1, no surprise to anybody who knows me, it's Star Wars. It came back, and it made me happy. It made me feel like I did when I was a kid. For all the reasons we talked about last week, I love this movie, and I've already seen it 5 times, and with each viewing, my point of view shifts. It changes. There's more information that I'm holding on to. I no longer think, even though Rey to me is the main character of this story, I don't think she's the reason why the Force Awakens. Because when Snoke has the conversation with Kylo Ren about, did you feel an awakening? She hadn't done anything yet. I actually think Finn is the linchpin to all this, and I think he's force sensitive. And really cool, on my way driving up here to San Antonio, my daughter said, "Hey, Dad," and I'm like, what's going on?" And she's like, I was thinking, remember in Star Wars Rebels how they were kidnapping children who were force sensitive? Do you think that's what the First Order was doing? And I'm like, I love this kid. I love her. Yeah, she's my kid, but even if she wasn't, I love this kid because you know what? Yeah, I can totally see that happening. I can see them kidnapping force-sensitive kids, force training them into being troopers, and trying to see if anything awakens. And I think that moment when Kylo Ren is looking at Finn at the very beginning of the movie, that's when the Force awakens. My opinion. We can talk about that forever. So I'm going to move on to TV shows. So, top 5. This was really hard. I am not even going to number them. I'm just going to call them out in no particular order. And I want to talk about 2 that I just fell in love with. I had no real reason to want to watch them. It seemed kind of silly when I would see when I would see the commercials for the shows, and I didn't feel like watching them. But then when I saw them, I was like, "Holy crap, this is fantastic!" And I'm talking about Fresh Off the Boat and Blackish. ABC, kudos to ABC for putting black families and Asian families out there prominently, being funny as hell. And with Fresh Off the Boat taking place in the 90s, there's that whole thing about reliving the 90s through someone else's eyes, but they're genuinely funny. Everybody in both shows, so funny. And I'm so glad that ABC picked these shows up, and I hope that they continue to be as good as they're being. So that's 5 and 4. At 3, I have The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And the only reason I got into it is because you and Andy kept harping me about it, and I'm like, I guess I'll give it a try.
If you had watched it by today, I would still be kneeling you about it right now.
Well, I kind of got to a certain point. I was like, these guys are going to ask me again. Let me just watch this. And by episode 3, I was like, holy crap, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
I just fell in love with it. We've already spoken about why Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is great. But at number 2, Jessica Jones, for a lot of the reasons Melissa stated. We don't have a lot of, female-led superhero shows or movies, and I forgot her name. What, Ritter?
Kristen Ritter.
Kristen Ritter. Sorry, Kristen Ritter is just absolutely fantastic in this. That whole internal struggle that she feels from episode 1 to the very end, it's so palpable. It's in her face. She emotes beautifully, but the entire cast that works with her, this show was absolutely great. It is slow in parts, but I like that. I like that they worked it out that way, that we didn't just get to her killing Kilgrave immediately. It had to build up, and I love that. And at number 1 is Daredevil. My God, when I saw Daredevil, it was one of those shows that I couldn't stop watching, where I saw the first 3 episodes and I said, you know what, that's 3 hours. It's more than enough, man. Like, you got to put this down. Leave some for the rest of the week. And then by the time I know it, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I saw like 4 other episodes. It was really that good. And that episode where Kingpin shows up by bashing somebody's face in with a car door, holy hell, was that awesome. Gruesome and awesome, because that is who exactly he should be. And he was perfectly played by Vincent D'Onofrio. Charlie Cox is fantastic as Daredevil, and I cannot wait for season 2.
So no Penny Dreadful? I'm really amazed, Marco.
I know it was so hard. It was really
well, it's in my honorable mentions that I forgot to mention.
Yeah, I have a lot of honorable mentions, but when it comes to books, there are 2 celebrity books that I read. One was Not My Father's Son, and the other one was Yes Please. Yes Please is Amy Poehler. Mm-hmm. It's so beautifully written, and it's all in her voice. You can tell it was her writing it. Very, very positive. And I have to put this out because there's a lot of negativity. There's just so much negativity, and so we all had fun with Star Wars, right? And then part of the Star Wars fandom started getting real negative, and it really bummed me out. So whenever there's something like this, like Yes Please, where Amy Poehler talks about some of her difficulties, but she's very, very positive about everything she's been through and her forward look on life. I mean, I highly recommend everybody reading her book. It's a real feel good book. You'll feel real good after reading it. Um, Not My Father's Son is was written by why am I forgetting names? Alan Cumming. He is a Scottish actor who you probably know as Nightcrawler from X-Men 2 and a whole host of other movies. He comes on The Good Wife, which I haven't seen. I know Melissa's been on me about this.
Yes,
Great
he's
actor.
excellent in that too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great actor, prolific actor. He's from Scotland and he's gay, and he talks about growing up gay in his father's household and how his father used to beat him brutally, mercilessly. It's real tough reading some passages. And when you get to the part where his father tries to make it seem like he's not the real father, that he's been keeping a secret that he's not the real father. So Alan Cumming goes crazy thinking, who am I? Like, who am I supposed to be? And it's all a ploy for his father not to be associated with his gayness. Is so heartbreaking. But once again, there is some positivity at the end, and it's a very, very, very good read. I highly recommend you guys to read that. The next book is one called Golden Sun. It's actually part of Red Rising trilogy. If you guys like sci-fi with a bit of mythology in it, space mythology, I guess, set in the future, read the Red Rising trilogy, which is going to end next month. The Morning Star book is the third book. It's going to come out. Very, very good writing, perfectly paced, and super, super intense and tight in terms of action. And then I have two graphic novels. Saga. Have you guys read Saga?
Mm-mm.
Saga is
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh, Saga. Oh,
So good. And the last one is one recommended to me by my previous boss. It's called Rat Queens, and it's so funny and awesome. It's basically Lord of the Rings, but it's a gang of females causing all sorts of mayhem and just killing all sorts of things, and they're gross and just extremely openly sexual, and they're women living in a man's world acting it, and it's really funny. It's really good. Definitely not for kids, so don't let your kids read that. But if you want a change of pace, I highly recommend reading that. So that wraps up my top 5 of movies, shows, and books. But I do want to recommend in terms of music, Sufjan Stevens has an album called Carrie Lowell, which it's his way of working out his mother's abandonment. And the way he wrote the music, really minimalist, extremely minimalist, and it's so beautiful. It sounds depressing to the point where it's going to take you over the edge, but it pulls you back in a real beautiful way. And if you want to give it a listen and experience somebody working out their issues in a beautiful way, I highly recommend you listening to this album. And that's about it.
Okay.
that's awesome. That's great. I know I will personally have like I said, I've actually got a top 40 list, and then I also have a bottom 10. So I'll be posting that article up on Big Shiny Robot in the next several days. Um, but I will take all of our lists along with all of our honorable mentions, and we'll put them on the website at whovirgin.com uh, in the show notes for this episode. So if you're listening and you want to read all of the rest of them and all of our other rankings, I will put all those up there in this. But that's about it. What a year, guys! I just think two things I noticed from all of our lists that I think were really cool. One, um, how many like streaming only shows and things that we had in there. It's
Mm.
like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu are taking over, and it's great that they're putting out so much good content. Um, they're also putting out some mediocre content, and they're also putting out some like eh, just bad stuff. But for the most part, I'm pretty amazed at a lot of that. And second, like I just, we always talk about, females in science fiction and fantasy and comics and comic related stuff. And we all chose Star Wars as our number one, which is a female led movie. Like Rey is the main character of that story, and that is destined to be the number one blockbuster of all time. I swear it's going to happen. So I don't and an unknown in Daisy Ridley.
Right.
Like who like it's just awesome. So don't tell me that we can't have female-led sci-fi when we've got Star Wars, when we've got Mad Max, when we've got Ex Machina, when we've got The Martian, where the captain is Jessica Chastain in that, and she was great in that. Um, we talked about Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Uh, it's all over the place, and it's just so great. And I feel like that needs to be said, and it needs to be pointed out, just because people forget. And if we don't, then we go back to that thing where, well, then the standard is the lead is always a straight white cisgendered male. It's like no, we can break out of those, and um, that's one of the reasons I love 2015. That's why I love where we're at with sci-fi and fantasy today. So thanks you guys for your top lists for the year. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you in 2016, which will bring a totally new set of craziness. Who knows what we'll end up doing with this first episode of the podcast back for 2016, but stay tuned to find out, and we will see you all next time.
Cool. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.